There are lots of places the story might start. I had lots of really good starting points. There could be the time that my ears swole up, like both earlobes swole up on a random weekend, and I developed a rash on both shins. That's a good starting point. There could be the starting point of what happened when I stopped hormonal birth control. Me developing a full-blown case of something I doubted existed. Talking about post-pill syndrome here. Full-blown case of it. We could start when I overcame chronic UTI symptoms. Something that many women struggle with, something that for a lot of women develops into something known as interstitial cystitis, and more commonly overactive bladder syndrome or painful bladder syndrome for obvious reasons. I mean, interstitial cystitis is such a mouthful and nobody really knows what you're talking about when you say it. So, could start at any of those places. And instead, I'm choosing to start this story right here. On the day that I finally caved to a friend's advice. This friend had been telling me for months that I should try something called Spinal Flow. And I just dismissed her because, I mean, I've tried so many things. I've tried acupuncture. I've tried myofascial massage. I've tried craniosacral therapy, tapping, sound therapy, meditation on more than one occasion by more than one person, because sometimes it really is the instructor. Yoga, probably some other stuff that I'm forgetting. I adopted an Ayurvedic lifestyle and diet for a few years and gave that up. I felt like I was living in a cage. What happened that made me finally listen to this friend? I mean, with all of that, I didn't expect Spinal Flow to actually be different. And I really wouldn't have heeded her advice at all until she sent me this before and after picture. And it was of an elderly lady with the kyphotic hump in the back, right? The before at picture looks something like this, and she was bent over at the waist as well, standing up, so maybe I should do that. Looking something like this, and the after picture looked something like this. Remarkable difference. Remarkable. So much so that the first order of business was picking my jaw up off the floor. And then the second order of business, I couldn't grab my phone quick, and actually I was holding it. I couldn't queue up Google Maps fast enough to find a spinal flow practitioner in my area. And then scheduled that first appointment. Went in to see this therapist, and I actually wound up seeing a network spinal analysis practitioner. These modalities are very similar. We talked about, the similarities in some of the other videos that you'll find here on this YouTube channel. Okay, so I actually wound up booking with an MSA practitioner instead of Spinal Flow because she was closer. And I went into her office. We did our general intake stuff, and she got me on the table. From the first touch, I knew this was different. I felt my body begin to unwind in a way that it just felt incredible. I mean, it still brings tears to my eyes. And I have been receiving this therapy now for quite some time. It still brings tears to my eyes to think about how much transformation I've gone through myself in my own health saga at this point, and about how much this really has helped me. When I walked into her office, I felt like I was treading water and getting nowhere and getting tired while treading water. So I was thinking, And I knew there was no way I was gonna make it to old age on the trajectory that I was on. Because I was already doing so poorly. And I was only in my early 40s. And it felt like every time I got a health symptom tamped down, because let's be real, I have overcome some monumental health symptoms, and I've done most of that myself. What I mean by that is head down in the research. Those chronic UTI symptoms I talked about, 18 months of seeing doctors, and Brandy herself figured out what was going on and fixed it. And not only that, but I mean, I started helping other women do the same thing because it was so fundamental and so profound. And the change was, I mean, I don't have symptoms anymore. So there's that. I have an autoimmune thyroid condition. Getting to where I am today with that and to the state I am with managing that, even before I found NSA, I'd pieced together so much. I'd figured out, I'd become a moonlighting hormone specialist. And still, every single time I thought I was finally getting to the bottom of it, or in my case, to the top of it, something else would happen. I felt unwell so much of the time, and I didn't feel right in my own body. And I think that's kind of that's a really hard thing to admit. I mean, it is. It's a really hard thing to admit. And that's what it took. It wasn't just my friend sending me that before and after picture. It was the state of mind I was in when she sent me that. I'd had a heart-to-heart with myself within the week of her sending me that picture, and had just gotten real about all of what I had going on, and about how little energy I had, about how often I was struggling with headaches, about how often I had this tightness in the right side of my neck associated with Hashimoto's, associated with lymph nodes being swollen, about how much my neck just snapped. I mean, seriously, people would look around for the bubble wrap when I turned my head from side to side. It was that bad. In addition, there were other, definitely more minor symptoms. And there was a lot of anxiety, which I was in denial about, quite frankly. I think I still am in denial to some extent on how anxious I really am. And I would, if you were to ask me, do you struggle with anxiety? I'd say no, with a straight face, fully believing that to be truth. I'm simply in denial. And coming to terms with how much, with the depths of that denial. So circling back to, this was the state I was in when I found Network Spinal. And from the first touch, I seriously felt my body begin to unwind. I, of course, scheduled a follow-up session and have routinely, this has become routine self-care for me. The only thing I do routinely. When at all possible, I do 8 sessions a month. I do those sessions stacked, meaning that I get 2 per visit, at least 2 per visit. Sometimes there's actually more like 3 or 4 per visit, at least 2 per visit, because of the way that this works. And this is something we'll talk about in other videos that you'll find here on this channel. For now, I just want to share what my experience has been. All right. I can't say that the headaches went away immediately. I can't say that anything happened, that I noticed any major symptom relief after that first visit. Because even though it's been a while, I don't remember symptom relief in that first visit. I remember feeling like I wanted to pick this part of myself up, so the top half of my body up, spin it around so it's facing backwards, and set it back down. That was the degree of unwinding it felt like. On follow-up visits, other things started shifting. I would have epiphanies on the table. I would have epiphanies between sessions. And between sessions, I mean, from one week to the next, I would have emotional releases. And I know this, like, that sounds really scary for anybody that doesn't allow themselves to feel, for anybody that, you know, if you're like me, there were songs I could not listen to. There were songs I did not allow myself to listen to because I knew they would make me start crying. So, and I'm not saying I seek them out today. I'm just saying they can play on occasion, and I don't have that knot in my chest like I used to. There may be tears. It's not the naughty, crappy feeling that goes along with sadness. So I would have emotional releases on the table, and by and large, these were nowhere nearly as intense as the actual thing, as the actual situation that caused them. There was only one time, like for the most part, they were cathartic. There was only one time where the emotional release was actually painful. That was something. And still, I'm so glad that I found this and have started doing this, because now looking back, what I see is it really, how I describe it now, being this far along into it, is that it was as though I was carrying 8,000 pounds of baggage with me everywhere I went. And all of that being emotional baggage. And I have let go of a lot of that. And this is where we're going to shift the conversation just a little bit and talk about energy. Talk about the amount of energy you need throughout a day, the amount of energy I need throughout a day. So each and every one of us needs a certain amount of energy throughout the day. And when you're in a situation where you're hanging on to this unprocessed emotion, what happens is you wake up in the morning after a full night's sleep, and your battery is charged as much as your battery is capable of charging for you in that environment, in the situation that you are in right now. Okay, so for some of us, that's only about 50%. For some of us, it's 100%. So wherever that is. So you're starting off with that much energy in the morning when you wake up. Now, everything you do throughout the day is either adding to your energy reservoir or it's diminishing your energy reservoir. So when you eat breakfast, are you able to digest the foods? When you go to work, are you able to, do you enjoy your work? Or is it a chore to drag yourself through the day and to actually do what you know you need to do, the things on your to-do list, just the demands of your job? Do you enjoy your coworkers? Do you enjoy interactions with your boss? Do you like your, even we're talking, do you like your boss on a personal level? All of this kind of stuff plays into it, because we're either building or depleting our energy reserves. And so then by the end of the day, you can very well understand why fatigue is so prevalent here in the West. Why so many of us struggle with that, because we've spent all of our energy forcing ourselves to do stuff throughout the day, and we've got nothing left. And I think what's so interesting about this is there's lots of different things that try to tackle this, different angles. Ayurveda, for instance, all of these diets that are whatever diet, throw it out there. FODMAPs, whatever. Essentially what they're doing is trying to safeguard against you depleting your energy reserves. They include foods that are either easily digestible or less likely to cause inflammation or less likely to do whatever it is that these foods supposedly do. Okay. And that should diminish the amount of energy you need to digest those foods. And just like an Ayurvedic lifestyle, it's set up, the activities throughout the course of the day are set up to conserve your energy throughout the day. Ayurvedic diet, the same way, set up to conserve your energy throughout the day. The problem is, these are safeguards. These are more maintenance. They aren't going to rebuild and they aren't going to rebuild your ability to have more energy. So if you're somebody that has 50% when you wake up in the morning, they're not ever going to get you above that 50% level. And you still have that same amount of energy to use throughout the day. They just kind of help you conserve it. And I've lived an Ayurvedic lifestyle for a few years, and it sucked. It felt like I built my own prison. You had to do this certain time of day, this certain time of day, and I am a control freak. And so I was very adamant and very rigid in trying to meet this, and it just doesn't work for a happy, healthy life. It just doesn't. So instead, what Spinal Flow and what NSA do, it's almost like it opens the door for you to build up energy, for you to all of a sudden access the power source. Because that's kind of essentially what you're doing. You are doing with either of these modalities, and a lot of times I will use NSA and Spinal Flow interchangeably. They are two different modalities. They work very similarly, just with different access points. With both of these modalities, what we are doing is increasing the flow of cerebrospinal fluid up and down the spine. In chiropractic science, regardless of what chiropractic science you're talking about, whether you're talking snap, crackle, and pop chiropractic, whether you're talking sacro-occipital technique, torsion release technique, NSA, or spinal flow, because all of these are originated from chiropractic science and traditional chiropractic science. With all of these, what we're doing is focusing on the parasympathetic nervous system so that rest and digest state rather than the sympathetic fight or flight or freeze state. We are encouraging the body to enter that rest digest state. Studies show that these modalities increase the flow of cerebrospinal fluid. Here's where any CST practitioner, so craniosacral therapist, will point out craniosacral does the same thing, increase the flow of cerebrospinal fluid up and down the spine. What this does is it bathes the spinal column with life force energy, with extra cerebrospinal fluid. Research shows that healthy people have higher flows of cerebrospinal fluid, so a higher rate of flow than various disease states. Younger people have higher flow of cerebrospinal fluid than older people. So what this does from a spinal flow standpoint, or from a chiropractic standpoint, because the spine is considered the back of the mind in chiropractic, and we store anything we can't process real time in tension patterns, in compression between discs, in what's known as subluxation. So it's anywhere where the disc is misaligned, whatever that looks like, whether it's too close to the disc below it, whether it's got a slight torsion in it, whether it's got, or I think this should still be torsion like this, or torsion like this, whatever you call that. And so we've got compression of the nerve flow from the nerve that exits in that between the space between those two vertebrae. Okay, so back to okay, back to kind of wrap this up. When we increase the flow of cerebrospinal fluid, what we're doing is helping to dislodge these things that we have stored in the back of the mind. We are returning it to the lymph system because cerebrospinal fluid drains back into the lymph system. Once it's in the lymph, body knows how to process it and eliminate it. The body's readily able to handle lymph and get rid of it, or get rid of the stuff that it carries. Now, NSA, so network spinal analysis, was created by this incredible guy, Dr. Donnie Epstein, and back in the 1980s. And Donnie is a chiropractor, and what he realized as he was working with people is he saw these different waves within the spine, a respiratory wave, and then a somato-respiratory wave, or somato, I don't know why I'm struggling to think of the other word for mind, but let's just call it body-mind wave. Okay, because it's somato-psychiatric. Anyways, body-mind wave. So he saw these two different wave patterns in the spine and then started developing the light touch that is used in network spinal analysis. And not only that, he developed this whole breathing technique, which I'm not big on breathing techniques. This is the only one that's ever actually worked for me. This is the only one I ever feel stuff shift with. And it's somato-respiratory integration. So body breath integration is kind of the easy way to say it. It is a 12-step program. Don's big on the acronyms, so it's known as SRI. It is a 12-step program or 12 stages of healing, basically. And I'll link to a few of the videos for that. I've recorded stages 1, 2, and 3. You'll probably find some of the other stages, videos for some of the other stages recorded here as well. Stage 1, 2, and 3. Like just doing those is transformational. Just doing those whenever, like whatever you've got going on in life, like just doing those first 3 is huge. And then, moving into the rest of them's crazy. I feel like I've done what I do so often. Let's just go off on a complete tangent. Hang on, let me bring myself back in and try to figure out where we got off track. Okay, so we're talking about energy. We're talking about plugging into your power source, which is, sort of increased flow of cerebrospinal fluid or life force energy. A lot of practitioners will use the term life force energy. Then we got segued into Donnie. This is why. Because, okay, so as part of this SRI, and then Donnie also practices. Donnie does a lot of things. Donnie's a cool dude. Donnie also developed this whole thing called epi-energetics, not epigenetics, epi-energetics. And this is really how you can access more unbound energy for your own life and start funneling that into your life. And oh my gosh, epi-energetics is freaking amazing. I will link over to another video that walks you through like one of the epi-energetics exercises. So look for the link for that below if I forgot to link it, which I'm a one-woman show, so chances are high I forgot to link it. Search for epi-energetics on this YouTube channel, or just go over and check out Donnie Epstein. All right, until next time, bye.